Hey friends, it's time to work on some more algebra here. We've had a little bit of a focus on factoring by grouping and how to solve things with factoring by grouping. I'm going to go over what we've already done briefly, so skip ahead if you've already pretty good at this, but next year, Algebra 2, or anytime you have 4 terms, you really want to, well, obviously, first thing, pull out a GCF. Can you pull out a GCF from all 4 terms? No, we can't. After we check for a GCF, if there's 4 terms, what we do is called factoring by grouping, where we split it into 2 teams. And we've already shown this. If you need to see the entire video, go back to that lesson. And you do the GCF of each team. So the first team here, 6x cubed plus 5x squared, we can divide by x squared, leaving me with 6x plus 5. On the second team, we can divide by negative 100. Why do we do negative 100? We always want this spot to be a positive number. So negative 600 divided by negative 100 is 6x. Divided by negative 100, we get plus 5. So that's what we do. And then both of these have the factor or the number 6x plus 5. So it's like we're pulling out the GCF. We're pulling out 6x plus 5. And what are we left with? X squared minus 100. That's not done because we still, I'm kind of running out of room here, we need to factor x squared minus 100. This is in the format of a squared minus b squared, and if you remember, that always leads to conjugates. A plus b, a minus b. Why does that work? When you distribute the outside and the inside, you get plus ab and minus ab, which would cancel each other out. All right, so when we do this, we're going to get 6x plus 5 times x plus 10 times x minus 10 equals 0. But we're not done yet. We actually need to solve the equation. If this was the number 0, right? Remember 6x plus 5. How many numbers is that? That is one number. And if it was the number 0, what is 0 times anything times anything? Well, it's 0. So if any one of these 3 numbers is actually the number 0, then the whole thing is 0. So what we're doing is we're doing 6x plus 5 equals 0. So 6x would equal negative 5, and x would equal negative 5 over 6. I do not expect you to show all that work every time, but that's what you're doing. You could look at this equation and, okay, I'd have to subtract 5 divided by 6. Subtract 5, divide by 6. Here I need to subtract 10, and here I need to add 10. Those are the solutions to this original problem. If you take any one of those 3 numbers and plug it in up here, the answer would be 0, and that's what we're looking for. All right, I'm going to do the next one a lot quicker. We factor it, or we split it into 2 teams and factor each team individually. That would leave me with 3x plus 1. We want that first number to be positive, so we pull out a negative 400, leaving me with 3x plus 1. We factor out 3x plus 1, leaving me with x squared minus 400. So we have 3x plus 1 times, factor x squared minus 400. That's another difference in perfect squares. That's going to be x squared. Nope. That is going to be x minus 20. And x plus 20 equals 0. And then we solve those. What would make that number 0? You would subtract 1, divide by 3. You would add 20, and you would subtract 20. That's how you make those numbers 0. A little bit of a side note, guys, is you actually, on tonight's homework, will have to multiply conjugates. If I gave you x minus 20 times x plus 20, would you know that this is the answer? Knowing how to go back and forth between these 2 formats is really important. The better you are at it, the easier it is. So like if I said x plus 3 and it's x minus 3, you need to know that that's x squared minus 9, right? That is conjugates, and when you multiply conjugates, it always leads to a difference in perfect squares. So keep that in mind, that you need to be able to go both ways in that scenario. All right, so now we're going to take a trinomial, 3 terms, and do factoring by grouping. Well, you might be like, how do I do that? Yeah, you can't, not yet. So let's go over this. The rules don't change. Just like factoring when a equals 1, when a equals a number other than 1, we're going to do a times c. It's always your a term times your c term, and we get 30. And it's positive 30, so what has to happen? If that's positive 30, then I need two numbers that add to equal b. So what's the process? It is the factors of a times c that either add or subtract to b. If a times c is 30, they have to add, and if a times c is negative, they have to subtract. So what factors of 30 produce the number 11? And that would be 6 times 5. And this is technically 6x and 5x. I never really write that, but those are the numbers that we're going to need to combine to get 11x. All right, so how do we do this? We're going to split the middle. We're going to do 5x squared, and we're going to do plus 6x plus 5x plus 6. Now look closely. If I gave you this red equation and said combine like terms, would it go right back up to the one right above it? The answer is yes. So it's really important that you're not changing the number, you're just splitting the middle. 5x plus 6x is 11x. And now that you have four terms, it's just like the ones we just did. You split the middle. We can pull an x out, leaving me with 5x plus 6. And this is important to me. You don't have to do this, but I like putting the placeholder 1. I know there's no GCF for 5x plus 6. But if we don't put the 1, we often forget that we have to have a 1 there on the next line. So even though we didn't pull anything out, please put a 1 there, because we're going to factor out 5x plus 6. And when you do that over here, right, the 5x plus 6 leaves me with x. But over here, what does it leave me with? It leaves me with 1. Well, if this 1 wasn't here, a lot of people forget that it's plus 1, right? We're dividing by 5x plus 6. It would technically be 1. So put a placeholder 1. All right, and then if we're going to solve it, what would be the solution? Subtract 6, divide by 5, and subtract 1, and those would be your answers. So factoring by grouping is very much like regular factoring. You do a times c. You figure out what factors of a times c equal b, and you split the middle term into those numbers. Then it's just like what we've been doing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly go through the rest of these. So 6 times 2 is 12. What factors of 12 add up to 7? That is 4 and 3. But it is negative 7, so I'm going to make it negative 4 and negative 3. So 6x squared minus 4x minus 3x plus 2 equals 0. Two teams. I always want to get this negative on the correct side of the zigzag. I'm going to pull out a 2x, leaving me with 3x minus 2. Remember, it should always distribute right back up. So like this would be 6x squared minus 4x. You can check your work real fast. Over here, I can pull out a negative 1. Remember, we want this location to always be positive. And please write the 1. It helps you remember there's a 1 there. And that would give me positive 3x and negative 2. So then I can pull out 3x minus 2. And that would leave me with 2x minus 1. So what solves that? Positive add 2, divide by 3, 2/3 would solve the first one. Add 1, divide by 2, that would solve the second one. Does it matter? I didn't talk about this earlier. Does it matter what order you write those two numbers in? No. It'll make these two lines look different, but you will end up with the same third line. So it doesn't actually matter what order you write those in. All right. Next one, we have an issue. It's not equal to 0. So first move to make it better is to subtract 3 from both sides, and now it's equal to 0. And now it's just like what we've been doing. 10 times negative 3 is negative 30. I need factors of 30. What does this tell me? They need to subtract to equal 1, and that's going to be 6 and 5. How do I get negative 1 out of the number 6 and 5? Well, it'd have to be negative 6 and positive 5. So 10x squared minus 6x, 5x minus 3 equals 0. And I'm going to go real fast. We make two teams. Here I'm going to pull out a 2x, leaving me with 5x minus 3. I'm going to put a placeholder 1, leaving me with 5x minus 3. So we have 5x minus 3, and we have 2x plus 1. So x equals positive 3/5 and negative 1/2. I'm going much quicker now. Let's take a look at this guy. Ooh, bigger issues. Oh, I forgot to change it. It's not negative 5x. It needs to be negative 4x in order to factor. My bad. I made a mistake, guys. I am so sorry. But I need to add 4x to the other side and subtract 3 to make this side 0. You do need it to be equal to 0, and you really want this term to be positive. Now we're going to do 15 times negative 3 is negative 45. It's negative, so I need factors that subtract to equal 4. And that is going to be what? 15 and 3? Nope. 9 and 5? Ding, ding, ding. So it's positive 4, so it needs to be 9 minus 5. That would equal positive 4. If you did 5 minus 9, that's negative 4. That's not what we want. So we have 15x squared. Oops. We have 15x squared plus 9x minus 5x minus 3 equals 0. So we split it into two teams. I can pull a 3x out, leaving me with 5x plus 3. I can pull a negative 1 out, leaving me with 5x plus 3. So pull a 5x plus 3 out, and that leaves me with 3x minus 1. Solve that. Subtract 3, divide by 5, add 1, divide by 3. Got it. So that's the factoring by grouping. And then one more big deal that I want you to know today. Well, you can watch the other video for quadratic formula, but the other big deal I want you to know right now is squaring a binomial. If you Google this, it's going to tell you that it's a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. Why is that? So this is the same as 3x plus 2 times 3x plus 2. When you distribute, what ends up happening? You get first with first. That is going to be 9x squared, which is like a squared, right? Wouldn't that just be 3x squared? Yes. So 3x squared is 9x squared. And then when you do the outside distribution, that would be 6x. When you do the inside distribution, that would be 6x. And what you get is plus 12x, which is plus 2 middle, like 2 distributions. That's your outside distribution and your inside distribution. So if this is A and this is B, if you did 3x times 2, isn't that 6x? So what we're saying is 2AB would equal 12x. It would equal 2 of those. So if you do A times B and then you double it, you can quickly get the middle term so that you don't have to do all this. And remember, it's a lot of what we're trying to do right now is find ways to save time, save energy, so that we can stay fresh and be able to finish tests strong. And then last times last, 2 times 2 equals 4. Well, sorry, 2 times 2 is 4, which is like b squared, right? Couldn't you just do 2 times 2 at the beginning and know that it's 4? So this is the answer. The most common wrong thing that people do is they just square the first number and square the last number. That is completely ignoring the outside and the inside distribution. You can't do that. So let's do another couple examples. What would it be if it was 4x minus 3 squared? I'd love for you to pause it and try to do this. It is, if this is A and this is B, you would do 16x squared, that's A squared. Now, when you multiply those, what is A times B? It would be 4x times negative 3. That'd be negative 12x. So 2 of those, 2AB, would be 24x. That would be my outside distribution and my inside distribution. So boom, nailed it. Let's do one more real quick. What if I had 10x minus 7 squared? That would be a squared, 100x squared, What would be a times b? 10x times negative 7 would be minus 70. So 2 of those would be minus 140, and then negative 7 squared would be plus 49. Boom. So that is 10x minus 7 squared. All right, I hope you enjoyed that. The big deal here is knowing how to do factoring by grouping on a trinomial. Hopefully that was helpful.